Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show and help other physicians and help people learn about passive investing, financial freedom. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You asked a great question. And when we record these shows, there's always some lead time in the turn. And right now we're recording it's the early part of November, and I'm in Carolinas, and it's actually cold here right now. So I've got my sweatshirt on for those listening. And where are you at, Chris?
I'm in Houston, Texas, and actually I would say we get about probably 1 week, 2 weeks out of the entire year of really great weather. The rest is either hot and muggy or just rainy. So,
Yeah.
but
How's the weather today, Chris?
beautiful 60s, 50s this morning, just clear, dry, sunny. So
Nice. Very good. Very good. So we always like to talk about just a little bit about the medical background before we jump into some investing stuff, business stuff, mindset stuff. So Chris, tell us a little bit about your medical journey, where you started and where are you at now?
yeah, my medical journey started in 2000, matriculated to the Baylor College of Medicine down here in Houston, one of the top medical schools, and it was a storybook career. I busted my butt in undergrad, got into medical school. It was my first choice. I was an MD, PhD, no student loans, and it was awesome for 7 years. It was surrounded by super smart people, and I started my financial freedom journey back in 2002, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And we couldn't get into more of the nuances and details, but essentially I started to see the failings of the current healthcare system with managed care, private equity, kind of doctors getting screwed over. And I started to plan my exit. That book was really pivotal in my journey. And I started investing in equities, and real estate back then was extremely cheap. And we'll talk about that journey as well. But by the time I was a senior in medical school, I had financial freedom, 2 investment properties. I had around 200K in liquid net worth, and pretty much do whatever I wanted. But nonetheless, I chose the standard path. I matched into orthopedic surgery. And I tell all my clients and whenever I give speeches, I love medical school, but I hated residency and I hated working for hospitals and I hated the corporate system. So September 2008 came, real estate crash, and it was an awesome time. So I turned in my keys, badge, and pager, took a leap of faith, bet on myself, started investing in Houston real estate. And over an 8-year period, got financially free, was able to retire early in 2016 as a result of investing strategically during this time. And I took a year off, traveled the globe, decided what I wanted to do with my life, and started Financial Freedom for Physicians. We are a digital media platform dedicated to raising awareness and the importance of financial empowerment and financial literacy and freedom for the physician community. So in that light, I've written 4 books, spoken on the White Coat Investor, Passive Income MD, FinCon, Seek, Concierge Medicine, a lot of big name physician platforms. I've coached dozens of clients around career transition, done healthcare consulting, giving keynotes, and my platform and brand has exploded since COVID, especially with the digital technology, social media, et cetera. So that's me in a nutshell, and I'm happy to answer other questions.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's just like wrapping it real tight right there. So much to unpack. You matched for orthopedic surgery, and then it doesn't sound like you were there for long, huh?
Yeah. So I matched in ortho residency, Rutgers, 2 years. And, what's interesting is I walk in day one, it was July 1st, 2007. I walk into orientation and my intuition, my gut, which I really honed, it told me, you're in the wrong place. It's not going to work out. But nonetheless, I lied to myself. I rationalized it. I was like, oh, you put too much into your career and effort. It's too late to turn back. And for 2 years, it's just complete misery. And I was off my path. I was missing a lot of opportunities. But luckily, September 2008 hit, and that was my keys to the exit. And since then, I've never looked back.
And the other remarkable thing that I heard in there, Chris, was the idea that you're still in med school, you're financially free, and you have 200,000 of liquid deployable capital. Well, that's like the opposite of what you would expect in a med student. So what is it? What was it that made it different? I know you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but what was that path that allowed you to set yourself apart?
Yeah, one thing was, so no student, I had a lot of things going for me is also the timing as well. So first thing is no student loan debt. And I was able to leverage that. The student loans that I did qualify, I used for investing in myself, self-development, books, courses, and then also low cost of living. So to give you an example, Houston back in the early 2000s, rent for a 2-bed, 2-bath would be around 1,500 to 2,000. But if you bought a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in better shape and condition, you can buy them for 50 or 60K back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was talking to residents back then and they were like, yeah, I just bought a condo just for investment because it's so cheap and it's like cheaper than renting. And so I was like, oh, I should look into this strategy. And back then it was also easy to qualify for loans. This was before 2008 when they had all of these restrictions. I was a med student and I was qualified becoming a physician. So qualified for my first loan. And then what I did was I house hacked the condo. So 1 bedroom I rented out to my roommate, who was also a med student. So I was pretty much living rent free, learned about renovation. And then once I did that deal, it was like 10%, 11% cap rate. I was thinking, oh, what's the next? So this was as the real estate boom was underway and the Fed he decreased the interest rates really low. Back then there was a stock market boom as well. So I was learning how to trade options. So the timing was also good. So those 3 to 4 factors really helped me get ahead.
That is fun. And the house hacking piece to start, and something I hear a lot too is this idea of buying versus renting and where we're at in our lives, our career, when that decision happens. And those we're surrounded by how much effect they have on us, on our decision as well too. So that idea that, hey, I'm going to pick this up and then I could house hack, which means I'm going to rent out this room. You say you're living almost basically rent free at that time. It's just remarkable. And I know that so many students, so many physicians coming through struggle with that same idea. In some markets that may work, in some markets that may not work, right, Chris?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So like I said, real estate markets they're very local and they depend on macroeconomic trends, which is what we're facing now. It also determines the phase of the business cycle we're in. But for example, Houston was a great place to buy in the early 2000s. Now it's appreciated. And now, for example, a lot of areas in the United States are not doing well, but then there's pockets of real estate that are doing well. So it's very local, it's very niche, and you have to know the area in order to make the deals work.
Mm-hmm. And for Chris, it was the perfect storm.
Yeah, I was lucky. It's perfect timing, all the factors. And then after 2008, that's when I became an entrepreneur. That's when a little bit rockier, a little bit more roller coaster, just because of the uncertainty and just the changing macroeconomic environment, technological changes, et cetera.
And I can't go past it without asking, how were you student debt free? Like, did you have capital going into your education career, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, part of it that really helped was being part of the MD PhD program where they train physician scientists more to go into academia and translate scientific discoveries to help clinics. And basically you get a free ride to med school and grad school, you get a stipend. I had no loans during undergrad because I also had a scholarship there. So I was very strategic with how I used student loans because I saw a lot of people they'd say, take out student loans. And to me, that didn't really make sense because I'm like, but jobs aren't going to be around and the economy is not going to do well. If you have all those student loans and you can't pay them back, what are you going to do? So I really bootstrapped my education, found scholarships. And like I said, I was always frugal and saving and finding ways to save money, and money meant a lot. I tried to stretch the value of $1 far and far, and that paid off.
Bootstrap medical, right? That's awesome. And in our way through real estate, that's really how we started until we started leveraging private capital. And that was I call it nitrous oxide in our race engine. Jumping into this real estate piece, getting that first place with, I believe it was a condo, Chris, where you were renting out the other bedroom, calling that house hack, and then 2008 rolling around. What did it look like? What was attractive to you in what class of real estate? And then what was the exit strategies that you first took off on?
Yeah, great question. So what was really attracted to me was really the timing. So basically everybody, and I love this quote by Warren Buffett, is basically when everybody's fearful, start to get greedy. And when everybody's greedy, start to get fearful because that's where the top is. So it was the mindset back then. Global markets were collapsing. The Fed was printing money, bailing out banks. And real estate was really cheap back then. When 2007, 2008, condo prices had appreciated to around 80, 90K for the same. And then after the crash, it was like corrected to 60 to 70. So one was the timing. The second thing was I had lived in that area for 7 years. So I knew what the markets were like, what the rents were like, who the clientele were. I knew everything. I knew how to get to the school. I know what people were looking for. Most of them were professionals just needing easy access to the hospitals, clean, safe, comfortable affording. So I knew that, and that was like my time. So I know you had another question, and I'll expand upon that.
Yeah, the exit strategy. So you talked about time and location, and then what does that mean, knowing these key pieces of information? What was the exit strategy for the investments?
Back then, basically, I didn't have an exit strategy per se. My entire MO was to accumulate as much real estate as possible so that I could cash flow it to get financially free. So that's what I did. I bought my last property in 2018 and now have since just watched it. And I sold off one or two properties just to raise capital and downsize a little bit and focus more on the company. And so that's how I looked at it. I know you also had another question, which also I was going to talk about, but I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I don't think that I can remember it either. It was just tiptoeing into this process here, getting in, and you're acquiring. So you're doing long-term rentals. It sounds the area and the returns that you're looking for, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the property management piece of that early on.
Yeah, I think I remember what it was, the property type. So I basically focused on single family condos. And the reason why was because I lived in condos. I knew all about condos, and that's what I focused on. A lot of physicians, they focus on multifamily or apartments, but I never ventured into that because I didn't have exposure, and I didn't. Why risk capital when I already understand single family condos? Of course, you can make more going into like bigger deals, but then you can also risk more. So I was more strategic, and so then to follow up on your question on. We keep losing our train of thought, but
just coming back around to these particular properties that you're acquiring to hold long term. You said that they were condos. So what about the property management piece? That's a big piece that will either make or break somebody, and it'll even make or break the idea of somebody even wants to do this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, great question. So for my first initial like 2-3 properties, I managed all myself because I wanted to learn. So real estate has really helped me learn the business, like how to be an entrepreneur, like not only in real estate, but like in equities and with my media business, think about all the risks. So the first 3 properties I managed completely all on my own through just email, through Airbnb, through just listings, all of these. And I did everything. And eventually with everything going on, I get stretched thin. So now I have a property manager. And the important thing is, so everybody's, just get a property manager, just get a property manager. I can tell you, property managers, if you get a good one, they can make your life really easy. But if they're not very good, they're going to add extra stress to what already you have. So plus you're paying them. So it's, a double-edged sword. So you always have to make sure. I suggest if you have time to learn property management, but then later on outsource it to someone that's trustworthy, reliable, decent fees. You can find them, but they're a little bit harder. You have to vet them and all of that. But eventually all of my properties are managed via property managers.
And that's something I love that. And I'll echo that. That was the path that we took, is the sweat equity piece, the education piece of learning, fixing toilets and collecting rent and all of those things that people don't like to talk about. But at the same time, Chris, I would also say that even if you're going in expecting to manage a property yourself, you should still be including the cost of property management in your equation, your acquisition equations, because that's important. Just because I'm going in to learn doesn't mean I want to keep doing that. So I have to make sure that those costs are included in there. And it's a great way. And it's so much, it can make or break you for sure. We had a few properties where we weren't checking in on them correctly like we should have. And these are the things where we have to learn how to use property managers as well. But we come to find out that these guys are only collecting rent and taking money. And then none of the things were getting done. None of the documents were being tracked. None of the inspections were being done. So
Yeah.
definitely have to find the right one. And you still have to be an asset manager. That is so important. Basically the profit is made on the acquisition, whether it's a long-term hold or a fix and flip, whatever it is, and it's realized on the exit or on the sale. And long-term, it's realized when we're renting. And if we're not properly managing our assets, then we're basically just giving away money.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yes, like I said, vetting property managers is very similar to, for example, if physicians go into real estate syndications, that it's very key. You have to vet property managers because they, like I said, they will take your money, they won't do the work. And a lot of them can make your job a lot more hassle compared to if you did it yourself. If you have to vet private real estate syndications, all of these are key things. So a lot of people say real estate is passive. It is not passive. You have to really look at it from an investment standpoint. You always have to be looking at it, managing it. If you're not managing it like physically, you have to really look at it in terms of more of a strategic way.
Yep. There's no such thing as passive income, and the idea that nobody's going to care more about your money than you. So if you just pass it off for passive income, then you're going to be leaving stuff on the table. You're going to be missing stuff. You're going to be losing stuff. You're not going to be really drawing as much juice from the squeeze as you should. So very interesting path there. And I have to say, on condos, typically you're going to have an association fee. And obviously that was part of your acquisition process. Inside of your acquisition, that's just a hard cost, right? There's some things that could sneak up on you with condos as far as assessments, those kind of things. Is there anything that you would point out with being an investor of condos when I talk about the association fees?
Yeah, association fees are a two-edged sword and they're good and bad. So I'll talk a little bit about the good thing is, especially in this day of climate change. So especially in Houston, so we have a lot of issues with plumbing, either summer or winter. We have hard freeze, the pipes can burst, or during the summer, the ground and foundation changes. So they're always shutting off the water. A lot of people have to make fixes in the condo, so they shut off the water. So water and all of that is frequent. So the association fees itself on the outside is really great during this time of climate change, and because they take care of everything, the insurance, all of that. However, especially with unexpected storms or tornadoes or winds, like for example, roof damage, sometimes that may be an extra cost to the homeowner. So just keep that in mind, especially in this day and age of climate change. So that's the good and the bad of the association fees. Sometimes I've had properties where the home association undergoes some turmoil, like the home association, people are stealing and embezzling funds or not doing things, and the board has to get replaced. So I've had 2 or 3 properties with that. So I've seen that. And then also you have to include it in the cost of your numbers. So basically it's going to take away from your overall profits, but I think of it in terms of insurance. So you pay it and they take care of the outside. And like I said, we talked about the risks and benefits, but it's a cost that you have to include in it. With rent going up, sometimes the rent can cover some of the cost as well. But again, you have to factor that in.
Yep. And you also have to make sure that the association allows rentals.
Yes. Exactly.
That's a big one. Big one there. Very cool. And you said your last acquisition was in 2018, it sounded like. What are you up to these days?
Yeah. So these days I'm out building my brand. I've really focused more on building my digital media presence, and I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements, traveling, speaking to a lot of events, conferences, organizations about financial freedom, financial literacy, promoting my books. And we've got a growing active podcast, YouTube channel, a blog, a website. The brand's really exploded since 2020 with people just wanting information and content, and it's so easy to digest it with digital media. And a lot of people are looking for information from people such as yourself and mine, and on podcasts, and getting an inspiration, or just if they want to reach out and learn more about us.
That podcast, Chris, is Financial Freedom for Physicians, correct?
Yeah, the podcast is Financial Freedom for Physicians. It's rebranded recently because the audience has just grown. So it's now called the Financial Freedom Podcast with Dr. Christopher Liu. So I rebranded it, but the brand is still Financial Freedom for Physicians.
Very cool. And you have this website that I'm looking at here that's got all of these links to the social media that you're talking about. It's Dr. Chris Liu, MD, PhD. And that's DR. All of the stuff is on there, and even ways to contact you and talk about you or talk with you. And because we're all thinking about this, we're all talking about it. We're all in one way or another getting closer to our why in life. And you have this remarkable path. And congratulations. I haven't told you that, by the way, of just taking action and focusing on those things that matter most to you, because all of us in human nature alike, we have this feeling that we then reason or logic our way out of. And you are able to connect with that feeling and move towards that feeling. So congratulations in doing that. But on this path, you've created opportunity for others too, and talking about this financial freedom. And we are all getting closer to our why is what I was talking about. So what are some just key takeaways that you would love to share with the listeners today about financial freedom?
Financial freedom, like financial or freedom in general, I boil it down to 4 different components. There's the finances part, there's the time part. So time is really important because you want to separate your income from your time. So a lot of people these days are trading their time for money through salary or earned income. You want to sever the relationship between time freedom and financial freedom. So basically you're earning money while you sleep. That could be through real estate, stocks, businesses, a lot of different avenues. And then there's location freedom, where basically my wife and I, during the summertime, we move out of Houston because it's so hot, and we move up to Seattle. So location freedom and have no impact on your finances, and as well as emotional freedom. And that's where you're self-actualized, you're growing, you're progressing, you're giving back. So that's what freedom is. And my why is basically, could have been an orthopedic surgeon? Sure, yeah, but I think I would have been really miserable. I think it would have come with a lot of problems. And I can only help typical surgery is like 5 hours. You can help one person. You make maybe 30, 40K. If you have a large brand, you can impact millions per month, making 80, 90K per month. And so that's my why, is to help more, be more, contribute more, and to grow more.
And if you were to go back 10 years, let's see, this would make it 12. So right around that 2008, 2012 time period, Chris, and you were sat beside someone on a similar path to you. Now, you're not talking to you. We're not going to change Chris, but somebody that may have been on a similar path at that time, what would you tell that person?
I would tell them a lot. What I would tell them is really focus on financial independence. And the way we see the world these days, when I talk to a lot of younger individuals, and they get it, they really understand, manage your debt load very smartly. Understand that one's career these days is going to be a portfolio career. So you could become a doctor, treat patients for a number of years, but start to think about what is next. So in the past, doctors practiced for 50, 60 years, and that was okay. But in these days, that doesn't work. So start to think about portfolio career, really learn about things outside of medicine, learn about the business of medicine, learn about changing demographics, learn about the economy, how it's working, learn about technological change and innovation, how AI and all these new technologies are impacting the workforce in the world, and start to adjust and adapt and start to think of other alternative income streams. So like I say, always diversify your income streams as well, so that if one income stream goes away, you're still okay. So those are the things I would tell others to focus on.
That's awesome. And in my mind, I just hear that find your own Chris, find your own form of Chris. And everybody that's listening or watching this, we all have these feelings. Like I was saying earlier, we have this instinctual feeling. Listen to it. Find out a way how you can make that work, not why it won't work. And we change that idea from I can't to how can I. That's where we find this path. That's where we find this freedom path. I love the way that you broke that down too, Chris, in these different buckets of separating time from money and this emotional bucket as well too. I absolutely love that. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love chatting with you.
Yeah. And thanks for reaching out. And I'm really happy to be on the podcast. I look forward to hearing the great things, and be sure to follow the podcast, give it great reviews, connect with me as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. And to the listeners out there today, just want to throw that website back to you one more time. It's Dr. Chris Liu, MCOM, All the social media is on there, including his podcast as well. You want to check that out and also leave him a great review. And I can't tell you how much it means for us when you guys do give us reviews as podcasters here. It helps us get out, helps us connect with other people. And like Chris was saying, instead of one procedure that lasts 5 hours, we can record one episode and it'll last a lifetime. And we get to share these opportunities and just shed the experience, the knowledge, because we grow so much together when we grow together. So thank you today for your time and your attention, most of all. And keep listening to great podcasts like Chris's Financial Freedom Podcast, and keep trusting yourself. Even if it is where you're at today, maybe tomorrow that's not where you'll be. And you want to make sure that you expand your associations and build those relationships that'll help take you there. And this is Brett and Real Estate Mogul MD. We'll see you next time. Cool. Good stuff, huh?
Yeah, that was good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I could go for hours and hours, but just trying to wrap it around that 30-minute time period always keeps it condensed. So cool.
Yeah.
We'll put this together. I'll follow you. If you do your own social media, you'll see my profiles connect on there. And then when we do go to post, we can just collab and get that stuff going and get it promoted, man. Well, it's awesome. I appreciate it, Chris.
Excellent. Thanks for connecting and thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I do have a quick question for you. I would love to get out and speak more. It's, I guess, a little bit different for me from the outside, being an outsider because I'm not a physician. Would you have any suggestions for me? Like, where can I start speaking? And it's the idea, I don't want to pitch or sell anything. I just want to give some of this experience and some of these resources that I've got to the physician world.
Yeah. One thing that really resonates with me is with you that you remind me of is, I think because if you reach out to Jim Dolly from the White Coat Investor, I don't know if you know him, and Peter Kim from Passive Income MD, and I'm happy to make that introduction as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. And because I know that they have podcasters and they have financial advisors and different companies come and speak to their audiences and platforms. So I'm happy to connect you with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually discussed over the months with both of them, actually. Perfect. If anything does come up where you think that we could plug in, and I would just love to get in the room and give as much as we possibly can if that comes up. If not, that's absolutely fine. It's been an absolute pleasure. If there's anything that I could help you do growing your brand, don't hesitate to reach out to us. If we can throw you some resources or whatever to help, we'd love that.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Brett.
All right. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Be well.
All right. You too, man. Bye-bye. So interesting conversation today. And if you think about it, do you think it's possible to be a medical student with no student debt? Do you think it's possible to even have 200,000 deployable capital and be a medical student? Today's guest did just that and leveraged real estate early on, just the perfect storm, the time, the location. And now he finds himself as an author, an entrepreneur, and retired at 38 years old. An amazing conversation here today. Stick around. This is Christopher Liu, MD, PhD. Intro.